In 1997, I responded to a friend and went to St. Stephen's Lutheran Church to help out with some mentoring. I was going to a program offered by an organization by the name of SIMBA, which acronym stands for Safe in My Brother's Arms. In 1990, after the riots in LA, the ELCA's response to that was a program called SIMBA, by which one of the Lutheran camps in Strawberry Point, Iowa, was donated for a number of years, by which African American men in the ELCA would mentor some of the youth. I was responding to that call when I went to St. Stephen's Lutheran Church. It never dawned on me that this was a Lutheran ministry. All I knew, it was on the south side of Chicago, and so in 1997, when I arrived, they were having a special worship service called Shekinah Chapel. I should tell you that Shekinah Chapel never had a desire of becoming a congregation. It was very simply a ministry to young African American men, not only in Chicago, but in Milwaukee, Columbus, Ohio, New York, and California. And so after attending this worship service on a Saturday afternoon, I decided to join. People like myself who were attracted to mentoring other young men, we recruited our friends, and this group of 19 young men grew to about 300. And so we became what was called a synodically authorized worshiping community. So we were on the path of being a congregation now within the ELCA. I was simply a leader in the pew, had no desire to be a pastor. As a matter of fact, I had not adequately discerned the call that was in my gut to be one of ministry. But in 2005, when our leader left, the group asked me if I would be their leader. So I did what any great Christian man would do. I said no. Was recently married and had 3 daughters, and I just wasn't something that I was really preparing myself to. But after some discernment of about a year in 2006 to 2007, I contacted the Senate office and told them that I was looking forward to pursue ministry. And so in 2007, guys, I became what's called a lay mission developer. I became the developer for Shekinah Chapel. We moved to a small village just outside of Chicago called Riverdale, Illinois. And in 2009, I was ordained through the team process, which is an alternative ordination process in the ELCA. So they paired me up with the Lutheran School of Theology at Chicago. I didn't take all of the required courses of the MDiv. I only took certain courses, fast-tracked to my ordination. And so in 2009, I was ordained. I want to point out, because this presentation is going to kind of hinge on this. So from 2007 to 2009, I was a full-time student and a full-time mission developer. In 2009, I re-enrolled in school and went through the MDiv program and graduated in 2013 with my MDiv. Thank you. If I would be honest with you, I didn't go get the MDiv because I wanted it. I kept hearing smart remarks like, "That's the pastor with the asterisks." And for many people who come through the team process, that's a painful thought, that your church and community would identify you, but your colleagues would say you didn't do it the right way. And so in 2013, our congregation was officially organized, so we're 2 years old. So from 2007 through 2013, I spent all those years in school, as well as spending time as lead pastor. So we had to develop ministry differently. So I'm going to share with you kind of the methodology of kind of how our congregation operates, and then I'll drill down a little bit more to focus on our time in Riverdale. If you build it, they will come. Well, in mission development, what I found is that doesn't apply. Right? We've all probably thought that all we had to do was build it and they will come. You'll find out once we arrived in Riverdale, we learned that just in this day and time with various problems and folks just not identifying with the church anymore, that wasn't a true statement. I basically have 3 concepts that we go by. That's engage, equip, and empower. And sometimes you'll even see the word evaluate. I don't think you can empower without evaluating. So there's a slang version of this that we see in our church. It's called bring them in, train them up, ship them out. Engage, equipped, empower. And so we believe that before you try to build anything, you should engage someone. And once the people show up, we have to be the primary individuals to equip them and then empower them. So when we talk about engaging, one of the things I found out is that people will invest in what they create. That when you build relationships around people's passion, they will invest in it. I talked to you a great deal about Simba. All of us either were victim of violence. All of us had lost our fathers to prison, jail. I'm someone whose dad was murdered when I was 2 years old. So we engaged. We all were operating around our passion. And this is what I found also needs to be replicated in ministry, that oftentimes when we get ready to build something, we have to make sure it happens in a place of engagement. Equip. I was blessed. When I learned something in seminary, so did the congregation. So for 7 years, every time I learned something, I could go to my contacts and I could make sure that they were learning what I was learning. When I had CPE, they had CPE. And this is really important because a lot of the things that I went through during seminary, I forgot. But because I taught it, those teachers are still teaching it. So a lot of the things are being reinforced by those who I brought to the congregation to constantly keep teaching. We heard it from Mr. Schultz, I believe it as well, that in order for our ministry, Shekinah Chapel, and I'll explain that a little bit later, in order for us to survive, it has to be lay-led. Why? Because I was a lay leader. Shekinah Chapel wouldn't be possible if the lay leader wasn't already in the congregation. Now, I know that mixes a little bit with our polity, but when we're trying to attract new people to the church, we have to contextually understand how they gather. I'm going to use this slide here to talk to you a little bit about kind of how we empower. So at Shekinah, I'd like to say to people, it's easy to get in and we make it hard to get out. We want to make it easy to get in and hard to get out. I find that people will quit on a denomination any day, but it's hard to quit on a friend. I find that people will join ministries in my context, but they don't join denominations. So what we have done a great job at is making sure that ministries are at the forefront of what it is we do. And when someone joins our congregation, we hand them over to our new members group, and one of the first things they commit to do is join a ministry for 90 days. we start to enter them into our apprenticeship program. If you come into our church and the big bulletin board, it says the year of the apprentice, and you'll see this statement. We recite it every Sunday. I tell our leaders it's going to take you about 6 months before you find somebody who you think is apprentice worthy. An apprentice is somebody who, when they don't show up to the ministry meeting, people ask about them. An apprentice is the person that when they're there, they're really engaging. And so we say when you find an apprentice, we make it a public declaration. So they come to the meeting, one of our leadership meetings, and the Sunday school class for grades 3rd through 5th says, I found my apprentice. See, they have to declare it because you can only have one apprentice for one ministry. So that's their way of protecting their apprentice, to make sure no one else is thinking about it. And once this process starts, what happens is I say, I do, you watch, we talk. Now, a group called the Intentional Impact out of Chicago, who was working with our Senate, kind of helped with the development of this. And that's where I do the work, and a lay member is there watching, and afterwards we get to talk about it. The next phase, which will be another probably 3 to 6 months, is we talk. So I'm going to give you a part of what it is I've been doing in Sunday school, grades 3 to 5th. We're going to do it together, and let's talk about what happened. Maybe 3 to 6 months after that, I'm going to allow you're going to do everything, and I'm going to be there supporting you, and we're going to talk afterwards. So you do, I watch, we talk. And if we are truly a redeveloping ministry, because my vision is somehow that the way that I can help the ELCA get people like me is to provide it for them. So we believe in sending people out. The last phase has to be replacing me, which means that now you're doing the work, someone else is watching you, and you guys talk. So one of the ways we engage lay leaders is we want everyone to commit to a ministry as soon as they join. And then what we're doing is we're constantly looking for apprentices. We're constantly looking for replacements. We're constantly looking for an opportunity to maybe send someone out someplace else to help someone else. Now that I've given you the methodology, I want to kind of take you from beginning to kind of where we're at and how this worked. You see Simba there, that was the group we had done a lot of great mentoring. And that bottom picture on the left, on the bottom picture, the person on the far right is a guy by the name of Jason Williams. Jason Williams is 35 years old, and he's what we call the lead minister. That means the minute I step out of the congregation, he's in charge. It's a lay leadership program. The person in the center is my wife. She's also someone who's considered a lay minister. And the person next to her is a gentleman by the name of Sebastian. He's a captain of the fire department. When I talk about roles, one of the things he do, I heard Pastor Schultz talk about the marriage counseling, where Sebastian is a fireman. He loves sick and shut-in. If someone goes to the hospital, he will race me. In 3 years, I've never been the first person at a hospital. Many cases, people come out of the hospital and I've never visited them. Or if I make it there, they'll say, I must really be sick. But I want to remind you that during the big time of our ministry, I was in school 3 nights a week. So we had to develop processes that allowed some of our lay members to work. So we had a lot going on, guys. Shekinah Chapel was founded by 19 teenage African-American men. who had no desire to start a church. So I need you to know that a group, a ministry called Simba founded our church. I mean, we were cutting edge. Anything that was urban, we were involved in it. A lot was happening. We were raising up what was called lay ministers, lay leaders. So we were told about this building in Riverdale. And we were told that Our Savior's Lutheran Church was closing. And that they wanted us to go out there and start building a ministry. If you build it, they will come. I found this at the library. Our Savior's Lutheran Church of Riverdale was truly the anchor of the community. Many might say that they were the reason that the community was prosperous. Those congregations where the mayor is the member and trustees are the members, they were real anchors. But something happened. Resources left. The community changed. So this church that organized in 1909, when we arrived in 2006, there were 9 members left. This is across the street from our church. This is where 90% of the business takes place. The sign probably tells you a lot. We have 15,000 people there, 47% is 18 of age or younger. And so it was a great idea. Shekinah Chapel, they are young ministry, they are mentoring, they got 54% or 48%, 18 and younger. We thought we were the perfect match for this community. If you build it, they will come. And we were doing stuff like holy hip-hop service. That's where people could write a rap with gospel lyrics. I mean, we were really, really working hard. People thought it was an ideal fit. We had very little impact. Something wrong with us, or was something wrong with them? We didn't follow our own methodology. We never engaged them. Through our engagement, we found some interesting things. I'm going to go through the slides really quickly. But when we engaged them, one of the things we realized that we had to overcome was a community that said, you're part of that church that was here, and refused to minister to us. The other piece of the conversation is we don't want your holy hip-hop service and we don't want your contemporary service. We really want somebody to help us with our basements. The pipes in Riverdale hadn't been changed since the 1920s, and they could not find anyone to stand with them just to ask for help. Not kind of what I saw the church doing, but engaging the community and doing surveys. One of the things we came to realize was that they wanted to know us. And so we started the process all over again. We moved there in 2007, had no impact between 2007 and 2009. 2009, we went and did surveys, sat down and did what we refer to as relational meetings with about 250 people, and got the process starting again. We engaged them and then began to equip them and empower them. Most people ask about our structure during that time. One of the things we came to realize was that this was kind of how our structure needed to be. We had people in our council doing things that I thought was more connected with ministry. So people who had elected positions were actually doing things that would probably fall in the line of callings. Working with the youth because you were elected for youth representative on the church council. So we began to undo some of those things. We began to go through these processes by which those who felt a calling on their life not to go to seminary, but to do more in the church, we started identifying them with ministry. So I want to focus on the bottom three. Our ministers, we have a 2-year process by which people go through a curriculum that I've developed. And that 2-year process is public. Everybody in the congregation knows. Right now we have 2 people that's going through the process for lay minister. The congregation gets a vote. It's a non-binding vote so the congregation feel like they have their say. And they have a project that they're working on for 2 years that the congregation picks. This is just the process for us by which the community get to affirm their leaders. And we find that people support what they help create. So because they were part of it, they tend to be very supportive of the process. We have a minister that is over youth. Everything with youth. We have a minister that's over community. They go to all the village meetings. They meet with people individually. We have a minister that's over all of the Christian ed, Bible study, all of the classrooms, make sure it's in line with our goals. We have what's called the lead minister, who supervises the other ministers and work directly with myself, as well as I supervise the ministers as well. Our deacons play similar roles, does different tasks. They're more service-oriented, handle transportation, finances, things like that. For our context, we also went to something called sacrament assistance. We had African-American parents in our context that said, you cannot baptize my baby. You can christen my baby. So whose job is it to explain our Lutheran theology to folks who maybe have come from a Baptist mindset? So what we have to do is develop another tier for those who would be willing to be the primary person to explain why we say we baptize children. Who would be responsibility to explain about communion? And so we had to develop another tier who kind of did that. And so these are some of the ways that we get lay leaders involved. These are some of the numbers about when we first moved in to Riverdale versus what has happened since then. When we arrived, 95% of the people came from Chicago. Today, we have 40% that comes from Riverdale. What you see on the bottom right is a banquet from our mentoring program. Left is just other ministry opportunities. So at Shekinah Chapel, we want to be a teaching parish by which we engage, we equip, we evaluate, and we empower. I'm going to pause there because I saw my 2 fingers coming up and end the presentation there.